So, good afternoon, everybody. So, today we start the actual class. I will review shortly, beginning from the Lamrim till today class. I just follow the heading, so you just remember. So every day we must recognize, we must remember we have very important life, which is human life. The human life is so rare compared with other beings. It is rare because the cause and conditions are very rare to have. Even though Buddha said very clearly in the Sutra, there are more sentient beings under the will of the ox. That means there's a will, under the will, size of the under the will, there are more sentient beings than the human beings. If you compare the number, human being number is very little. We have a numbers. That means the life is so important. It is very rare because the costs are very rare. In order to have human life, we have to accumulate the pure karma. Every day, even though we accumulate the merit are not pure. Sometimes we have a good motivation, but not actual good practice. Sometimes we have a good practice, but not motivation, and we don't have a dedication. That means every day when we accumulate the merit is very weak, very little. So first, every day you must recognize I have a very precious human life. So difficult to achieve, easy to lost. Easy to lose because one reason it is impermanent. Within our lifetime, within 1 year, you have seen some of your friends, relatives, brother, sister, parents pass away, or your neighbors pass away. You heard every day someone pass away. That means the life is very impermanent, very easy to lost. Very easy to lose because all the good condition for our life, all the good condition for our body, someday it can be caused to harm our body. And nowadays, there are so many unhealthy food which is we are eating, and also there are so many different types of disease which can be affected to us. That's why it's very easy to lost. So what happened? Some of us just pass away this evening, or tomorrow morning, day afternoon, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. What will happen to the person who passed away today and tomorrow, day after tomorrow? If there's no next life, then it's fine. You just finish your one life. No need to worry about next life. That means it is quite sure, it's very much sure there is a next life. There was a previous life. You can have a strong belief to know there's a previous life based on some story, based on a lot of reasoning and logics. And also pretty much sure there's a next life. And your next life can be go into better life, and not is depend on your karma, very much your karma. even though within one lifetime we always to be happy person, to be better person, to have a better situation. Most people only think only this life. Most of the people think only this life, only think until death. As a Buddhist, we should not only think about this life, also we should think about next life after next life. We should think all the way to become a Buddha. That means we need a long plan. So in order to free from suffering this life, in order to free from problems in next life, we continuously have to achieve human life. The human life can be achieved only through having the very powerful karma. So after we death, then we need to think there are only two options. We can reborn in the lower realms, we can reborn in the higher realms. It depends on you, depend on your karma, depend on your practice. So in order to have a better life in the future, in order to have a reborn in the next reborn in higher realms in next life, what we should do, we should apply all the important factors which can achieve better life. That means first you really need to take refuge into Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So before we take refuge into Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, we must know what are the causes and conditions of taking refuge. Then I hope everybody knows there are two types of cause and condition to take refuge into Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. One, you need the sense of fear about the samsara. Second, you need very strong belief. If I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, I can be free from samsara. I can achieve nirvana. I can have a lasting happiness. Then how you should take refuge into Buddha, Dharma, Sangha? That means you must recognize the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. As well, you must recognize the quality of Buddha, quality of Dharma, quality of Sangha. Particularly, you must remember the quality of Dharma. That means you must know the quality of the cessation, quality of the path. After you fully knowing the qualities, then you can take refuge into Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. After you take refuge into Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, what you must do, what you mustn't do. I hope you remember there's a advice. After you take refuge into Buddha, you should not take refuge into the worldly beings. Also, you should not mix up taking refuge and having a request. When you have a certain problem, you can have a request to the worldly beings. You can ask them to have a sudden helping from them, but you should not take refuge to them. After you take refuge into Dharma, you totally need to avoid the non-violence. You should not harm anybody physically, mentally. Harm not necessarily to harm physically. If you make someone angry, also you are harming to other person. You are harming to other sentient beings. In order to avoid the non-violence or harming, first you have to be very calm mind, relax. You must accept the truth. After you take refuge into Sangha, His Sangha here talking about the Supreme Assembly. After you take refuge into Sangha, then you must have a respect to the Sanghas. As ordinary person, sometimes we can see that somebody has a lot of good qualities, but we never appreciate their good qualities. We always pick upon the certain the faults. Nowadays, right now we are in the degeneration time. It is so difficult to find very pure. Is the next door? It's so difficult to have a very completely qualified teacher. It is so rare to have a completely qualified Sangha. That's why even though when you see some Sangha has some faults, even though if the person has a more good qualities, why not you should pay respect? In generally, look at, as a human has a very interesting mentality. Somebody give you a lot of support. Somebody always be kind to you. You don't remember their support. You don't remember their kindness. Sometimes the person did something wrong, some mistake. You always remember the mistake. You never remember the good heart. So after taking refuge into Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, then you must remember all the advice. Then overall, you really need to generate very stability, faith toward Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, particularly your master, your gurus. And the all good quality, the foundation of all good quality says, the faith of your guru is the foundation of all good qualities. Then nowadays people are very excited to attend different teaching, different session without knowing any history of the master, without knowing any good qualities of the master, but you still really want to attend the teaching, really want to receive the initiation. So before you receive initiation, before you receive any kind of teaching, you must check the quality of the master. Then, yes, you must remember the definition of the quality of the teacher, the quality of the disciples. We always check the master has these qualities or not, but we never check, do I have all these qualities or not? So we must check equally. Also, you must criticize equally, not only master, not only teacher, but yourself. If you think some qualities is not there, then you try to have all the good qualities. After you found a good teacher, then you must receive enough instruction how to practice Dharma, how to practice all the practices. Then you seriously practice the Dharma. Then how I can practice Dharma? Then the Dharma means transforming your mind. You need to transform your mind. You need to increase your positive mind, decrease negative mind. That means then number one, you need to think about the karma. In generally, the meaning of karma. So we have a physical karma, mental karma, verbal karma. Second, then we need to think particularly the karma of the lower realms, karma of the human realms, karma of the celestial being realms. Then, in order to have a good life, we must avoid all the negative actions, gross, subtle, very subtle level. and also you fully understand the positive karma, then you always try to do the positive actions. Gross, subtle, very subtle. Then after you understand the law of causality, then you must think, yes, the positive karma can produce, happiness. The positive karma can produce, good things. The negative karma always produce the negative thing. Then slowly you must understand the Four Noble Truths. The positive karma can produce the positive result. The negative karma produce, negative result. Then the positive mind also can produce positive result. Negative mind can produce negative result. That means the truth of suffering, the origin of suffering, the cessation and path of cessation. Four Noble Truths. Then you really need to know the connection, the relationship between truth of suffering, the origin of suffering, the relationship, the cessation and the path to cessation. So you should not think the Four Noble Truths are very simple, very basic. You should not think it's very deep. All the teaching which is taught by Buddha during the second wheel of Dharma, third wheel of Dharma, during the all the Tantra teaching, everything taught based on Four Noble Truths. That's why truth of suffering has three types: changing of changing, pervasive suffering, suffering of suffering. The pervasive suffering, then we talk about the dukkha, the physical body. The physical body go into three categories: gross, subtle, very subtle. The gross which is we have right now, the subtle also we have, the subtlest also we have. The Vajrayana explain how you can have the subtle body, the illusory body. Right? That means the Four Noble Truths are the very foundation of all the Buddha's teaching. Then when he talk about the origin of suffering, generally talk about ignorance, attachment, desire, karma. If you go more deeper, more subtle, then finally all the origin of suffering, the suffering of the origin finally go into the energy, go into the subtle mind. If you recognize the subtle mind, if you're able to control the subtle mind, you can be Buddha within one lifetime. If you don't recognize the subtle mind, the subtle energy, if you're not able to control the subtle mind, you forever in samsara. Then the Vajrayana explain the root of the nirvana, the root of the samsara is the recognize the subtle energy, then control the subtle energy. That's why, Four Noble Truths. Then second, related to the cessation. So in general, it's quite easy to understand. Cessation means cease, stop. All the negative karma, all the afflictive emotion, all the negative thoughts. But if you go more subtle, the afflictive emotion also three level: gross, subtle, very subtle. Very subtle. Then, in order to know the cessation, you must know the emptiness. You must know the object emptiness, subject emptiness. Then, Mahamudara, Chakchen, whatever. Then related to the path to cessation, usually we talk about renunciation, bodhicitta, emptiness, six paramita, so and so. But if you go more subtle, then so all the paths depend on the subtle mind again. That means killer light mind. So the killer light mind link with the path, to liberation. Then the subtle energy, the subtle wind is linked to the origin of suffering as well as linked to the linked to the path to cessation. So Four Noble Truths are very important. So within the Four Noble Truths, two truths always with us. We have a origin of suffering, we have a suffering. When I say you try to meditate on suffering, we always try to remember suffering with other person. We never think, we never recognize I have the suffering, I have the truth of suffering, I have a pervasive suffering, I have a suffering of changing, I have a suffering of suffering. All the suffering rooted by ignorance, attachment, desire. And ignorance, attachment, desire, all the negative affliction also rooted by the subtle energy, the subtle wind. So knowing Four Noble Truths are not that easy. So must you know the Four Noble Truths. Then when you think about truth of suffering, then you're going to understand the renunciation. So you must remember the foundation of all good qualities. Four Noble Truths. Then in order to know the truth of suffering, origin of suffering, then you need to reflect to the 12 links interdependent. How we reborn in the second existence. We reborn in the second existence through the 12 links dependent, 12 links interdependent. You must know, you must remember the 12 links interdependent, because we already had a class, particular class for the 12 links interdependent. After you fully know the 12 links interdependent, look at the 12 links interdependent. There's no really beginning and end. That's mean since beginning lifetime, our whole life like this in the circle is never ending. If you don't recognize emptiness, you're not going to ending. It's going to go like this millions of time. Four Noble Truths, 12 link interdependence. Within the 12 link interdependence, then we talk about the death. The death is the end of the one life. That is not end of the life. The ignorance is the beginning of the certain life, but it's not the beginning. It's a beginning point. Then, when we think about the death, then you remember the practice of death. Because many practitioners, many Buddhist people, practice Dharma whole life. Moment of the death, if they don't remember the practice, doesn't matter how long you have been practice Dharma, moment of the death, if you have very strong negative thoughts, if you have a strong attachment, desire, the next life, 100% sure, you will reborn in the lower realms. So, controlling your negative thoughts at the moment of the death is very crucial, very important. How we can deal, moment of the death. That means every day you must remember, now I am alive, I am breathing, I am eating, I am drinking, I can see, I can feel, I can touch. I am so happy, I am so lucky, I am still alive. Then you must know, yes, I am very lucky today I am alive. Because my friends passed last night, yesterday, day before, last year. Somebody going to die tomorrow. We know some of you is almost 100% sure dying within few weeks. That means death is definitely come in our life. Every day you remember the death, then you able to reduce the scary sense of scare about death. Actually, I said many times, we are not really scared about death. We scared about what happened after we death, right? So if you really have a lot of worry about what happened after your death, you no need to worry. You can control everything today, everything in your control. Then, so you must remember all the indication, how they come moment of the death. If you dead in the accident, there's no certain time to, recognize all the indication. There's no certain time to practice all the practices. So if you dead in the the gradual process, then there's a time. All the indication appear to you. Then you must recognize, yes, I told you the last class, if you know, from Paya Lebar to Kalang, Aljunat, 10 minutes, Aljunat to Kalang, 5 minutes, Kalang to Lavender, 2 minutes, right? Then I said, there's certain sound where yes, that is sound. I'm in the Paya Lebar. Yeah, I'm Kalang. Yes, I'm in the Lavender. Now is the time to get up. If you mix up the indication, then you're going to get up in the Aljunat, not in the Lavender. They're not going to reach the TBC. Okay, so you must know all the indication, how appear to you, moment of the death. If you know all the indication, now you are very focused. Yes, now I can see the indication. This means I am this stage. Now it is the time to leave my body with a positive mind. Then you will reborn in the higher realms. Death. Then, special when you think about the Four Noble Truth of suffering. Then what you need to think? Yes, I have a suffering. I don't want suffering. As well as all sentient being has a suffering. They don't want suffering. They want only happiness. Me and all sentient beings is very equal to have a happiness, to avoid the suffering. Then slowly you think about, compassion towards all sentient beings. Then why I need to worry? Why I need to think about others? You can think. I can think only about myself. I don't worry about other. I'm not bothered about other. It's not like this. Your happiness is depend on other. Look at now, everybody wear clothes. This clothes is made from certain company, made by many people. Many people, put lot of effort, time that we have a clothes. We had a breakfast, we had a lunch, we have lot of drink. Everything come because of others. Without others, you cannot survive. For you only one. I am only one. Other is countless, limitless. So other are more important than you. Because you alive because of others. You have a food because of other. You have a clothes, medicine, all the facilities because of others. So other are more important than you. That's why you should not ignore other happiness. You should not ignore other suffering. You equally take care your happiness and other happiness. You equally take care other suffering and your sufferings. That's why then slowly you try to generate, great compassion. The great compassion is the root of the Mahayana practice. Then how we can generate great compassion? Then you must know the great compassion is so important at the beginning of the Mahayana practice. It is so important in the middle. It is so important in the end. Then how we can generate great compassion? Then there are two bases, which is equanimity and affection. Then you must remember how I can, how we can generate equanimity. Then first, you remember the equanimity is look like the ground, is look like the field. The love is look like the moisture, right? It's the field. Then great compassion is look like the seeds. Then bodhicitta is look like tree. The nirvana is look like the fruits. So in order to cultivate, like crops, like trees, whatever, first we need a ground. We need a piece of land. Only land is enough? No. The land must be very, plain, very soft. If there's a lot of rocks, lot of stone, lot of sand, lot of bad grass, you cannot grow the good, like rice, barley, beans, mango, whatever. Now it's so important. I give you one example. Someone wished to grow a barley on the land, on their own land. But on the land, there's a big pig, big bird, big snake. The person just wished to have a grow, like a barley on their own land. But the person never tried to remove the pig, the big pig, big bird, big snake. Without removing all of them, can you grow the barley? Can you grow? Cannot. If you put a seed, the pig go and dig, eat the seeds. The bird also go and bird also go and eat the seeds. Even though somehow the bird, the pig didn't know there's a seed. If there's snake, you cannot touch. You must remember you have a pig in your mind. You have a big and very, very strong pig and very strong bird, very scary snake. What are they? Ignorance, attachment, aversion. You still think I can generate bodhicitta. You still think you can grow the seeds, right? But you never try to remove the pig, bird, snake. So look at the practice of dharma look very simple. They always train your mind. So that's why in order to generate bodhicitta, the land must be very good. That means you must have a equanimity. If you have a strong sense of attachment towards your friends and relatives, then your bird is very strong. It's going to eat the seeds of bodhicitta. If you have a very strong aversion, strong anger towards your neighbors, your friends, your co-worker, and then who come? Snake come, destroy the seeds. Then even though you wish to practice dharma, you wish to become a Buddha, if you don't know the reality, if you don't know the ignorance, then who will come? The pig. Okay, pig. So you must know, yes, I wish to generate bodhicitta. First, I must have the good land, good piece of land, which is equanimity. So how you can generate equanimity? Number one, according to the Lamrim, how you can generate equanimity? First, you need to focus on neutral person. Okay, that means you really need to just imagine somebody. You don't know nothing about the person. You just imagine the person. When the person has person have a good news, how do you feel? you really don't have a really happiness. You don't have any kind of appreciation. The person has bad happen. You don't have any regret. Your mind is very neutral. Then finally, slowly the sense of equanimity. Then you have to move towards whom? Your friends, your relatives, your brother and sister. Then you have to think equally. The person which is you don't know, you know nothing about the person, the beings, the groups of person. Then on the right side, you just imagine your relatives. Particularly, you imagine your dear friend, your mother, your relatives, dear friend. On the left hand, you just imagine the neutral person. Then you just look at both sides. If something good happened to your relatives, you feel so happy. He's happy because of you. It's not because you have a compassion, because you have a attachment, right? Then now you need to equal two of them. You're the neutral person and relatives. Then slowly you need to change this kind of equanimity, transform into focus on your enemies, your disliked person. I don't think you really have enemies, but of course you have certain people which you don't like. Then you put the enemy or the disliked person in the middle. On the left side, the neutral. On the right side, your relatives. In the center, you can put your enemy or your disliked person or disliked people. Then you just think how you feel when you remember the neutral person. You remember, you check yourself, how do you feel when you remember your relatives, particularly your dear one, how do you feel? Then just focus in your enemy. You just feel, you try to understand how do you feel. It's a neutral, attachment, aversion. Finally, you must have an equanimity for everybody. Then you can have an equanimity towards all sentient beings. That means you have a basis. That means there's no snake, no pig, no bird. Now you have a good land. Now you are ready to put the seeds, get compassion. The second basis, what is the second basis? Affection. Also, you should not mix the affection in the ordinary sense. Right? Sometimes people mix together affection and love. Here affection means wish the person be happy. Wish the person have a cause of happiness. Wish the person I can cause to them happiness is affection. Right? Then if you have equanimity, if you affection, then you can generate great compassion. After you generate great compassion, then you need to generate what? Wholehearted resolve. Altruistic, right? Then the question, right? Remember the question, why you need to practice a wholehearted resolve between great compassion and bodhicitta. Right? Then the answer, do you remember the answer? If you keep thinking, suffering, if you keep thinking about suffering, somebody has a wish to, free from suffering, wish to have a happiness, then you can have a strong kind of desire to avoid the suffering, to separate the suffering, to, achieve the happiness. But still, you never take the responsibility, right? Then last, you should think, yes, for example, when your dear one gets sick, one dear one, not just dear, a very dear one. When your very dear one gets sick, what you should do? Just wishing, or you're going to act? You're going to act. You go to see doctor, get medicine, provide the medicine, give to the patient, right? That means you are taking responsibility to recover the sickness of your dear one. Same way, and then you must take responsibility to have a happiness to all sentient being, cause of happiness, and also provide the happiness. Then you are really taking action in action of the Buddha, great compassion. Then finally you able to generate bodhicitta. Then do you remember the meaning of bodhicitta? Bodhicitta. Now it is quite simple. Look at, when you see suffered person, the person is totally in suffering, then you just wish the person separated from suffering. Then you are thinking about their welfare, right? Their welfare. So in order to separate the person from suffering, then what you need to do? You need to get medicine. You need to get something. This means, in order to relieve all sentient beings from suffering, then I have to be Buddha. I have to be Buddha. I have to achieve Buddhahood. After you achieve Buddhahood, then you have all the powers to relieve all sentient beings from suffering, all sentient beings to bring in the liberation. That's why, so this is how you must practice Lamrim. So now we are studying about what? Page number. No, then there's two different ways you can generate bodhicitta. One is the 7 cause and effect. Second is the exchanging self and others. Okay, now you just close your Lamrim. So page number 39, right? 35. Huh? Somebody said 37, somebody said 35. Okay, let's say 37. 37? Okay, recognize only. Okay. I 37 finish, I think 38. Remember the kindness. Okay, then number 3, page number 39. Just remember, just try to answer this question. Cultivating the wish to repair your mother's kindness. So how you can repair all the mother's sentient being kindness? How you can repair, how you can giving back their kindness? Give them just Lamrim. I can buy 100 Lamrim, just give them. Very good, give them Dharma. Actually, in Lamrim, what it says, whatever your mother has achieved, something is deceived. Right? Do you remember the sentence? Deceived. This means, look at, as a mother, as a like great parents, as a mother, as a father, just say, one mother has a child. Since the mother have been giving so many things, food, clothes, what the child need, the mother always provided. So giving food is the just only aim of the mother for the child. Just giving food is enough for the child? No. Just giving clothes is enough? No. So what is the main achievement of the mother for the child? What is the main achievement? Huh? Yeah, completely happy or be educated. Nowadays, look at all parents always think my children or child must be educated. Good education, right? Good education. Since the child born, the mother always final achievement is the educated. Be educated. Education is the final. It is same when you just generate bodhicitta, great compassion, you have a strong compassion towards everybody. When somebody gets sick, you can give medicine. Somebody is hungry, you can give food, clothes. You can give whatever they need. But it is not your goal. Your goal is to bring the sentient being to the liberation, liberate from samsara. This is your goal. So repair is not just small. Look at the mother when the child sick. Mother give medicine to recover the sickness. Then finally, slowly the mother bring the children all the way to the university and college graduation. Then the mother almost fulfill, her dream. So in order to practice, repair of their kindness, you should think this way. At the short time, I can give so many things. On the long time, I must bring them to liberation. I must liberate them from samsara or suffering. Then is final, the repair. Then how you can generate love, compassion, wholehearted. How you can generate love? Step number 1, what is the object of love? Object. Okay, you should not have a confusion. Okay, for example, I'm looking at the Lamrim, this book. This book is the object of my mind, object of my eyes consciousness. This is object. My mind is subject. The mind perceive the book is kind of action. So when you meditate on love, that means you have the mind, which is you name a love. So what is the object of the love? Object. Sentient beings. In the labyrinth, just say sentient beings. There's some extra words. Are you making your own words or the mother sentient being who don't have happiness. Okay, is living beings who don't have happiness. This is the object of love. Then what is the object of compassion? What is the object of compassion? The mother beings who don't have who has a misery. Who has a misery, right? Misery is the object of compassion. Then you must remember the love and compassion is one coin has a two sides. When you see someone in suffering, you just wish the being, free from suffering, then you are practicing love. When you see the suffer person, suffer being, at that moment you wish the suffering being be happy, have a happiness. That means you are practicing compassion. Okay, the next question. What are the benefits of practicing compassion? How many benefits are there? How many benefits is mentioned in Lamrim, practice of great compassion? I think almost 8, right? 8 benefits mentioned in Lamrim. Okay, page number 43. Now you can look at the Lamrim and you can count the benefits of practicing love. Nagarjuna Precious Garland states, page number 43. Right? Even if you are not liberated through love, you will turn its 8 good qualities. Number 1, deities and human will love you. 2, they will also protect you. 3, you will have joy and much physical pleasure. The 4th, poison and weapon will not harm. 5, you will attain your aim effortlessly. The last one, worldly Brahma, right? Reborn in the world of the Brahma. Look at, as a Buddhist, people are always interested to do kind of, very interested to offer flower, incense, fruits to, the Buddhas and Dharma Sangha. This Lamrim mentioned very clearly, even though if you offer hundreds of millions to the hundreds of millions of Buddha, you can accumulate a lot of merit. If you just practice compassion, love for one snap moment, one short moment for all sentient beings, it can accumulate more merit. Right? This means, as a Mahayan practitioner, of course you can make an offering like a food, flower, incense, so. The more important, what you need to practice great compassion. You need to practice love. Not only just pure sentient beings, all sentient beings equally, without exception. Why, it is more important practicing love and compassion rather than the making offering. Why? For example, if I offering a light, candle light to the Buddha, I accumulate merit. But it cannot get a lot of changes in your mind. For example, there are 2 friends. They are very close friends. One friend always emphasizes the religious activities, religious action like offering light, incense, go around the holy object, visit the holy place, recite a lot of mantra, doing a lot of chanting 24 hours. One friend emphasizes only practicing love, compassion. So which can have a more benefits? The friend who practices love and compassion, he or she can get more benefit than the other. When he or she practice love, this increase his love and compassion as well as reduce the anger. Also reduce the attachment. Right? This means there's a true benefit. If you practice love and compassion, accumulating merit as well as reduce the negative thoughts. If you do only, like offering practice thing, you can have only one benefit, which is accumulating merit. So that's why you always, try to do both. Most time you do, the practices love, compassion, kindness, tolerance, 6 paramita. Huh? Oh, yeah. Okay, so before we have a tea break or short break, just Anybody has any question? Yes, Sonam?
When we practice the compassions and the loving kindness, always in the past, what I understand is you love, but the kind of love and misery that we want to remove from them are all those worldly things, the sufferings of the evident suffering that we want to be removed. But is it the practice actually should be more focused on the suffering, which is the pervasive suffering, which is the involuntary birth, that kind of things, rather than to remove the evident suffering? Because when a beginner practices, and the practitioner themselves has the afflictions, so when they practice in a very worry ways, it mixes with the emotions and it becomes something like manipulations of emotion. So my question is it the focus of practicing the equanimities, the loving compassion, all those things should be more on the pervasive sufferings level rather than the worldly emotional things?
That's why compassion has a three different levels. The simple compassion, you can focus on just only your dear and dear one or your friends. You can wish them to be happy. You just wish to them from separate from suffering. Is very simple compassion. So when you practice this kind of simple compassion, so you can provide very small things. You can provide clothes and food. You are not really focusing them totally free from suffering. You are not really focusing them totally free from samsara. The second, again, love and compassion, second level is the contaminated, polluted love and compassion. Even though he try to focus on more people, more sentient beings, even though this kind of compassion polluted by attachment, desire, or conditioned love. Because many people, if I practice compassion, I can have a mindfulness, I can have a less anger. That means it is kind of polluted, or polluted compassion is polluted by desire and attachment. The last one, the great compassion, great love, is just focus all sentient being without exception. In your mind, you really have from your heart, you really thinking all sentient beings equal for you. It doesn't mean you don't have a parents, you don't have a relatives, you don't have a neighbors, but there's a friends, there's a relative, there's a parents, there's a dear one. But in your mind, you must have a equal equal mind towards all sentient being. When based on this compassion, when you practice compassion, you really think, I must remove all suffering, particularly the pervasive suffering, particularly wish to have happiness, particularly wish to have the liberation. There's a different compassion, different love has a different object, different wish, and different kind of achievement. And also, at the beginning, I said many times, as a beginner, you just generate the love and compassion in your mind. You should not go in the practical level, because you are very beginner. You are look like in the Chandrakirti said, the beginner practitioner of great compassion, the beginner practitioner of the bodhicitta is like fresh sprout. Fresh sprout. It is very fresh. It's not enough strong. If you leave the sprout in the sun also going to die. If you put too much water, also going to die. You really have to take care of this fresh sprout. So all of us, we are very beginner of practice. Beginner of practice compassion and love. So our mind is not enough strong. Our compassion, our love is not enough strong. If you go in the practical level, then there's a dangers to decline, to minimize the compassion and love. First, you must have a very strong compassion, strong love. Then slowly you can go into practical level. At the beginner, you should not. Then I'll tell you the story about one of the Indian master, right? Okay, one more question. Then can I have a break? Okay, then we can have a break. Have a tea and coffee, have water. The principal aspect of the path, page number 28. Yeah, the prayer and meditation annual, page number 28. Related to the practicing bodhicitta and great compassion. At the beginning, the number 6, the renunciation, however, if not tempered by pure mind of bodhicitta, does not bring forth the perfect bliss of unsurprised enlightenment. That means we must generate renunciation, plus the renunciation must be tempered or joined with the bodhicitta. If not, we cannot achieve the perfect bliss. That means Buddhahood. Therefore, the wise one generate the excellent mind of bodhicitta. Next, number 7. Because generally when we generate bodhicitta or great compassion, we always think about the suffering, truth of suffering, pervasive suffering. Here very different, number 7. Swept by a current of the 4 powers rivers. That means it's mentioned current, like kind of very strong rivers. 4 powerful rivers. They've mentioned 4. So number 1, rivers of ignorance. Second is rivers of wrong views. Number 3 is rivers of karma. Number 4 is rivers of samsara. Let's look at swept by the current of the 4 powerful rivers, tied by strong bound of the karma so hard to undo, caught in the earnestness of the self-grasping. That means, look like everybody, we are in the rivers. We are in the 4 rivers. That means river is so big, is so strong. Ignorance is the one of the rivers. So we have a ignorance, then we have a wrong perception, we have a misunderstanding, we have a mischaracters. Due to the misperception, wrong views, then we engage into the negative actions. That means ignorance, wrong views, negative actions or positive actions, karma in general. So due to the ignorance, there's a wrong views, misperception, mischaracter. Due to the misperception, misperception, then we have a wrong actions. Due to wrong actions, then we have a samsara. Samsara has a two meaning. In Tibetan we call Nögyjiten, the container samsara, which is where we live. This world, this universe is also samsara, is the container of the samsara. So we are the content, which is where we are live in the samsara. That means our body, where we live, is also effect or result of the karma. All the karmas arise based on the wrong view, misperception, misunderstanding. All the misunderstanding, misperception arise based on ignorance. That means all sentient beings, all mother sentient beings, in the current of the four powerful rivers. Then all sentient beings tied by strong bonds of karma. That means we are in the river. Our hands and legs are totally tied by what? By karma. So difficult to release. Then we are caught in what? Around nets. That's mean look like we are like a fish. We are in the nets. The net is not made of plastic, not made of simple quality. It's a around. It's so strong. That means the grasping of phenomena are like in the nets. The karma look like the rope. The four powers of ignorance, wrong view, karma, samsara look like rivers. That means all sentient beings, believe in dharma or not, everybody has a ignorance. Everybody has a misperception. Everybody has a wrong action. That's why we are in samsara. So our life is totally bound, tied by karma, positive karmas or negative karma. The positive karmas and negative karma is look like like a two snake, black and white snake. When you look at the two snakes, the color is big different. The white snake look beautiful. The black snake is look very powerful. But if the white snake bite you, also release you poison. The black also release poison. The positive karma also produce the positive action, positive result. But still, we experience the suffering, right? So look at our life is result of the positive karma. Since we born, we totally in suffering. All right? We have a physical suffering, we have a mental suffering. Most time we have a less physical suffering. We are always with the mental suffering, right? So that's why, in order to generate bodhicitta, great compassion, great love towards all sentient being, you just recite this sentence, try to understand. Then, born and the reborn in the boundless existence, celestially tormented by the three misery. So number 7, 8 are very important sentence. How to generate bodhicitta, great compassion. So this is related to the Sonam question. So after we generate the cultivation of wholehearted resolve, then finally we are going to generate bodhicitta. So then bodhicitta, generally there are two types: conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. Right now we are talking only the conventional bodhicitta, not the ultimate bodhicitta. The conventional bodhicitta we can divide into two categories. One is the expressional bodhicitta. Second is engaging bodhicitta. It is so important. Okay, expressional bodhicitta, engaging bodhicitta. So after you generate great compassion, love, altruistic, then you have a strong kind of altruistic, free all sentient being from suffering. Very strong desire to bring all sentient being into liberation, into the complete liberation. This moment you just have a strong desire. You are totally inspired by great compassion, love. You have a strong desire to bring all sentient being into the liberation state of Buddhahood. You have a strong desire, but you haven't engaged. You haven't engaged in the Bodhisattva practices. Then after you have a strong desire, then you really practice the six paramita. Then you are really really going into the Bodhisattva practice. You are really engaged into Bodhisattva paths. That means there are two types of bodhicitta: conventional, ultimate. Within the conventional, there's a two types. Then bodhicitta has another you can divide into four groups. The conventional into the four groups. It doesn't matter at the moment. First you generate the expressional bodhicitta, then slowly you engage into the Bodhisattva practices. Bodhicitta, then because end of the page number 49 is mentioned. Although there are many disagreement about what these two are. Know that the expressional is the either may I become a Buddha or I will become a Buddha. Right? May I become a Buddha, I will become a Buddha for the sake of all beings. And that is the long as you have not taken the Bodhisattva vows. It is expressional, spirit the present. Expressional bodhicitta. Whether or not you are attaining the deeds of the generosity. Once you have taken the vows, then the spirit person is the engaged spirit of enlightenment. Engaged bodhicitta. There's a there's a lot of different there's a lot of debate. What is the differences between expressional bodhicitta and engaged bodhicitta? There's many debates. Finally, the conclusion by Lama Tsongkhapa, he said here, you have an expressional bodhicitta. If you haven't taken the Bodhisattva vows, the bodhicitta is only the expressional bodhicitta, haven't become the engaged bodhicitta. This make a conclusion by Lama Tsongkhapa. After Lama Tsongkhapa, there are so many masters also disagree with the Lama Tsongkhapa. So it doesn't matter you take a Bodhisattva vows or not. After you engage into practice, then the bodhicitta become the engaging bodhicitta. That means somebody already prepared to go to somewhere. That means it look like the expressional bodhicitta. It's just prepared, make a lot of preparation. Next morning, the person is really moving. The person is really going towards where they want to go. When the person move, that means is engaging bodhicitta. You wish, all sentient being, free from suffering. Next, you are acting. You act for release the being from suffering. There's been two types of bodhicitta. So should not mix great compassion and bodhicitta. Great compassion, love, altruism are the mental factor, not the mind. Bodhicitta is the mind. Mental factor and mind is, contradiction phenomena. One mind cannot be both. Mind and mental factor should not mix, because great compassion, bodhicitta, love and bodhicitta, you should not mix. It's totally two separate things. Then I think we almost finished the 7 cause and effect. Okay, before we move the next subject, do you have any question? Shall I make it more clear? Is something which is you really don't know, something you totally confused?
Well, can you just go through what you just said about mind and mental factors and the difference between great compassion and bodhicitta?
Okay. So in order to know very precisely the differences between mind and mental factor, first we must know the definition of mind, definition of mental factor. The mind and mental factor both are consciousness, both are consciousness, but still we can call mind. Okay, should not mind and mental, the meaning of mind and mental factor is different. Okay, mind and mental factor both are consciousness. But in the English term, consciousness means, know something. I conscious, right? Know something. But in Buddhism, the consciousness meaning is different. Consciousness is different. Then generally, the nature of the consciousness, the definition of consciousness is the entity of the phenomena is very clear, able to perceive, able to comprehend the object. Okay, so clear, one part. Second part is the able to comprehend, able to perceive an object. This is the definition of consciousness. When I say is clear, this means it abort, it stop. The person is not consciousness, because a person, human being, can perceive the object, right? I can perceive the object, you can perceive the object, but you and I, we are not consciousness. But we have consciousness. We are not consciousness. We have a mind, but we are not a mind. So we, the person, the human being is able to perceive an object, but the nature of the person is not clear. So how you can recognize the pure mind? There's a technique, or there's a methods how to recognize the mind. When you just remember something, your mind perceive an object. Just now you remember your home, your room. That means your mind perceive the object. If you think about your past, then your mind perceiving what happened in the past. So in order to recognize the mind, you just stop to remember what happened in the past, stop what you need to do for the future, just try to, arise the mind without perceive anything. There's a short moment, very short moment, you try to recognize the mind. After you recognize the mind, second steps, then you need to recognize, you must know how the mind is function, how the mind is function. Mind is look like a king of the country, look like a king. The mental factors are look like the cabinet, right? Cabinet, right? Component or cabinet. So in Singapore you have a Prime Minister. Do you have Prime Minister? Then you have other minister. The Prime Minister never go everywhere, right? He said to the Education Minister, go and they are right? But finally he said, oh, our Prime Minister is so good, he did this. That's why mind is look like a Prime Minister. Mental factors are like ministers look like minister. In generally, the mind has only ability to perceive the object. Just perceive the object. Then when it doesn't have a ability to make a judgment. For example, it's so quick, the mind and mental factor is function so fast, so quickly. So that's why you cannot differentiate as a beginner, as an ordinary being. When you look at, just you look at the Buddha, when your mind see, suddenly you say this is Buddha Shakyamuni. When you look at, suddenly you say this Zambala. Actually, there's an order. The mind just perceive. Second, the mental factor make a judgment. But it's so fast. So mind is just perceive the object. It look like a king. The king can order to the cabinet. For example, when you just look at this object, somebody can think, oh, it's so nice. Somebody think it is not nice. Somebody say it's okay, right? Everything is judged by mental factor, not the mind. Mental factor. So usually we say mind is look like a king, mental factor is look like the cabinet. Then, for example, when you touch an object by your hand, when you touch first the what we call there's a 5 minds, 6 minds, 5 consciousness: eye consciousness, air consciousness, nose, air, tongue, sensation, and body, tactile, right? When you touch, first, the physical, the body consciousness can perceive the object. Then you can feel it smooth, rough. This is judged by the mental factor, not the mind. Okay, this is a difference between mind and mental factor. But still, many master also says, bodhicitta is not the mental factor. It is not the mind, is a mental factor. Many master says, but we follow the other master who says the mind is the bodhicitta is the mind, not mental factor. So why I have to say, because when you practice great compassion, it look like the great compassion is look like bodhicitta. Is not. Very important one, when you generate bodhicitta, first you remember all the suffering of sentient beings without exception. Then you wish all sentient beings, be happy, be free from suffering. in order to be free, in order to free from suffering, in order to achieve happiness, I wish to become a Buddha. There's a two-step. Step number 1, focus on all sentient being. Wish to be happy. In order to be happy, number 1, I must become a Buddha. The bodhicitta focus into two objects. One, all sentient beings. Second, your own Buddhahood. Your own Buddhahood. For example, when you see somebody got very serious sickness, it's very serious, then you wish to become a doctor, right? First, you looking the sickness or the serious disease to the certain person, then you wish to become a doctor. Then wish to become a doctor because of the suffering. This bodhicitta is looking at the one side, looking at sentient being. Second side is looking to achieve Buddhahood, to benefit all sentient beings. Okay, then means, so we almost, I think I complete the 7 cause and conditions. Next, we have to study about, the second way of how to generate bodhicitta. This means exchanging self and other. Okay, before we don't have a lot of time, so I will recite here. So the middle meditation stage, Kamala Shila, he composed 3 Lamrim texts. One is the first meditation stage. Second is the middle meditation stage. The third is the last meditation stage. This is very important because it include all the practices. Last time I read sentence number 1. Today I will read sentence number 2 and sentence number 3. Also, from among these causes and conditions, you should cultivate correct and complete cause. If you put the wrong cause into practice, even if you work hard for a long time, the desired goal cannot be achieved. Right? It's so important. There are so many causes and conditions. In order to generate bodhicitta, you must put the right effort to the right cause and condition. If you put the wrong cause into practice, then you're never going to achieve your goal. You cannot. Then the analogy, you will be like milking cow horn. Likewise, the result will not be produced when all the causes are not put into effect. For example, if the seeds or any other cause is missing, then the result, a sprout and so forth, will not be produced. We should not, missing all the condition. We must have all the condition. That means recognizing all sentient beings as mother, remember their kindness, depends so and so. We must have the 6 causes and condition. Then you can achieve the bodhicitta. Therefore, those who desire a particular result should cultivate its complete and unmistaken cause and condition. That's why we have a very strong desire to be happy. We have a strong desire to be separated from suffering. In order to have be happy, we must have all the cause and condition that you can be happy. This one. Second, if you ask what are the cause and condition of the final fruit of the omniscience, right? So omniscience is our final kind of achievement. That means ask this question, what are the causes and condition of the final fruit, which is omniscience? Remember why we need to achieve omniscience? Because we must teach Dharma. We must give a right, methods. Then omniscience is so important. I who am like a blind man. That means Kamala Shila said, I look like, the blind man. May not be a position to explain by myself. Kamala Shila said, I am not in the position which I explain. But, but I shall, employ the Buddha's own words, just as he spoke them in his disciple after his enlightenment. This means he said, I cannot explain by my own. I will, follow after Buddha teaching, which is Buddha taught after he become enlightened. That's why it's so important what he said, may not be in a position to explain by myself. Nobody, only Buddha can teach by their own. If I try to teach my own, experience, 80% can be wrong, 10% can be right. So this is so important. As a Buddhist people, whatever you practice, whatever you believe, practice, believe based on Buddha teaching. There are so many commentary on Buddha teaching, but all commentary is commentary on Buddha teaching. This is what we said, the spring water must be touched to the snow, because in Tibet all water coming from snow. In Singapore no. But somehow in Tibet all the waters finally touch to the snow. That means all the practices what we practice, what we believe, finally everything have to attach to the Buddha teaching. Then he said, Vajrapani, Lord of the Secret, the transcendental wisdom of the omniscient has its root in compassion and rise them to cause. This he said, the right causes and condition of the omniscient is the compassion. If there's a compassion, then you can have a altruistic. When you have altruistic, then you have a awakened mind, bodhicitta. Therefore, if you are interested in achieving omniscience, you need to practice these three: compassion, awakened mind, or bodhicitta, and skillful means. Because everybody interested in achieving omniscience, interested in achieving Buddhahood, then we must practice these three things, which is compassion, awakening mind or bodhicitta, and skillful mean. The skillful mean here, the wisdom of knowing emptiness. So far we have a little experience about compassion. We have a bit experience of awakening mind of bodhicitta, but we don't have a experience about knowing emptiness. So in order to realize emptiness, we need to eliminate, we need to purify very strong negative karma. Also we need to accumulate merit. That's why I said many times, even though Lama Tsongkhapa, he able to see Manjushri, he able to communicate to Manjushri, but he didn't understand emptiness. So finally he asked to Manjushri, I have great difficulties to understand emptiness. What shall I do? Manjushri said, two things combine, which is accumulating merit, purifying negative karma. Purifying negative karma, accumulating merit. That's why Tsongkhapa spent many years in the one of the mountain, So he made lot of offering mandala. At the same time, he did lot of prostration, the long prostration. That time he was totally renounced. He didn't have a golden mandala, silver mandala, wooden mandala. He offered mandala on the rock. On the rock. Every day he offered mandala on the rock. Before he mandala, he have to clean the mandala, right, by this funnel or arm chair. And also he did lot of prostration on the rock. You can now, in the future, when you go to Tibet, you can see the mark of the body. So as a beginner, of course everybody wish to realize emptiness, wish to generate bodhicitta. So we must do two things, purification, accumulating merit. You must do the compoundly together. Then, every day we do a lot of, the good things. Whatever you do, you must do for, generating bodhicitta. To do for the realize emptiness. Even though when you lit a light, just lit the light to all the merit fields and wish to realize emptiness, wish to generate bodhicitta. 24 hours, your activity, you do the action to realize emptiness, to generate bodhicitta. It's a very simple activity, but it accumulates a lot of merit. Three things: compassion, awakening mind of bodhicitta, and skillful mean. This means emptiness. Skillful meaning is also very important. Even though when you practice compassion with the skillful meaning. Practice compassion with the wisdom. So wisdom is look like your eyes. Within the 6 paramita of wisdom is look like eyes. If you have eyes, you can see everything. If you don't have eyes, you cannot see everything. You don't know which is nice, which is ugly. The wisdom is look like eyes. Then compassion, sentence number 3. Moved by compassion, bodhicitta take the vow to liberate all sentient beings. When you have a strong compassion, you are totally moved by compassion. Then you take the vows, right? You're going to have a commitment. I will liberate all sentient beings. That means there's an order, okay? Great compassion. Then you have a vows, you have a commitment to liberate all sentient beings. Liberate from samsara. Then by overcoming this self-centered outlook, they engage eagerly and continuously in the very difficult practice of accumulating merit and insight. So look at, in order to completely practice great compassion bodhicitta, there's a big, great obstacle, which is self-centered, self-cherishing. It's the big, great obstacle. Also, is the one of the big enemy as a Mahan practitioner. If you have a, less or more self-centered, it totally will block to generate bodhicitta. It totally to block generate great compassion. So self-centered is very, very big challenge for us to reduce. Because since beginning time, when we say I first, then other second. We keep thinking about I, therefore we are in samsara. We face a lot of difficulties. We have all the sufferings. For example, Buddha Shakyamuni, Manjushri, Amida Buddha, all the Buddhas, they are free, totally free from samsara, right? They are totally happy. They are happy 24 hours. We are not. Because they totally, reduce the self-center, eliminate the self-center, self-cherishing. Then, therefore, they are very happy. You can see within your family, just say there's two brother and sister. The brothers always say, I, always I first. Then the brothers never ever be happy. The sisters say, oh, others. There's one cup of milk. The sister offers, you drink first. Then sister always be happy. The brother never be happy. Because the brother has a so strong self-centered, self-cherishing, self-grasping. So those are, very great obstacle we must reduce. In order to reduce, we must accumulate merit and insight. Having entered into the practice, they will certainly complete collection of merit and insight. So after we practice bodhicitta, then there's only two action. There are only two action, accumulating merit and practicing the special insight. That means after you, fully generate bodhicitta, then at the beginning of each meditation, each practice, first you generate bodhicitta for few seconds, few hours. That moment you are accumulating merit. You are reducing the self-center. Then slowly you just meditate on selflessness, emptiness. That means you are meditating special insight. Sometimes at the beginning you can meditate on impermanence, emptiness, selflessness. Then engage into bodhicitta, great compassion. Look at, as a Mahayana practitioner, we have only two practices. Practices of the accumulating merit, practice of the special insight. Meditate on something, engage in something. Engage in something, into something, practice on, meditate on special insight. That means wisdom and methods must practice together. So next class we will talk more about exchanging self and others. Very short this thing. Then we will study shortly about the how to take Bodhisattva vows. Okay, next homework for you. Page number 52. '67. Page number 52 to 68. Okay, page number from where? 52, 68. Make sure 68, no 63, 64. So also, exchanging self and other. If you read the Guru Yoga Puja, there's a few sentences are very important. Also, you can read little bit the Bodhisattva way of life. Okay, next class we're going to finish two things. One is the exchanging self and other, and the ritual for adopting the spirit of enlightenment. Two things going to finish. Okay, now we have enough time for meditation. So today, why not? We should do like this, okay? So we go going to practice the 7 cause and condition, 7 cause and effect When I click, okay, just meditate on step number 1. What is this? Recognize all sentient being as your mother. You really need to think deep of your heart. All sentient being without exception, your mom. You know, you can use different logics, different reasoning, different experience. If I click second time, then you move to the second step, which is recall their kindness. Their kindness. Before you recall their kindness, first you recall your own mother kindness. Then slowly you bring the same idea towards all sentient beings. Then step number 3, repair their kindness. When you think about repair their kindness, you can think, at the short term I can repair many different ways. The last one, I must bring them to liberation, to Buddhahood. The number 4, affection or love. So before you practice affection and love, first you practice equanimity towards the neutral, then your friends, then your enemy. Then you practice love. Then first you focus towards your relatives, then a neutral person, last enemy. After step number 4, step number 5, great compassion. The step number 5, great compassion, right? 6 is altruism. This moment you should think, yes, this is the time, to repair their kindness. Now I am a human being. I can see the opportunity to repair their kindness. Free them from suffering, bring them to liberation. So today this is the time to take the responsibility. So I will bring all sentient beings to liberation. I will separate all sentient beings from suffering. Then next one, then you meditate on bodhicitta. You're going to hear the 7 click. So we follow the 7 steps. Clear? Okay, so next we shortly meditate on emptiness. We haven't touched the meaning of emptiness, but everybody just visualize certain object. The thing, how the object exists. You try to find the object from the object side. So you can do a lot of analytical meditation, how the object exists. Where's the object in front of me? So you do a lot of analytical meditation, analyze part by part. Then finally you're going to see you cannot find anything from the object side. Okay, so everybody look at the page number 28, the prayer and meditation manual book, same verses. The sentence number 6 and 7 and 8. Sentence number 8 at the last is mentioned, thinking of your mother in this condition, right? Thinking of your mothers in this condition generate the supreme mind of bodhicitta. Also, you can change this sentence, thinking of your mother in this condition generate the love, generate the great love, generate the great compassion. you're thinking of your mother in this condition, you can change as a generate bodhicitta, generate great compassion, generate love. Also, you can change in another way, thinking of your condition in thinking of you are in this condition, thinking of you are in this condition, generate renunciation. Generate renunciation. Because when you think about suffering on others, you can generate love. When you think yourself in suffering, then you can generate the renunciation. So it is said by His Holiness Dalai Lama, important, thinking of your mother in this condition, generate the Supreme Mind or generate the bodhicitta. Thinking of your mother in this condition, generate the great love, generate the great compassion. Thinking of you are in this condition, generate the renunciation. These words are very important. This you can learn how to generate renunciation, bodhicitta, great compassion. So thank you so much. So we will do the dedication prayers. We can do only the Lamrim prayers, Sonam.